Greetings again everyone, and hot on the heels of my review of Sony's new compact A7C Mark II camera comes its more expensive but no bigger brother, the A7CR. And the key difference between these two models is very obvious. The R version has a far higher resolution sensor with 61 megapixels of detail instead of the 33 megapixels of the cheaper camera. Honestly, not that many people actually need more than 33 megapixels for most photographic work. Nevertheless, 61 is very exciting, if your lenses are sharp enough for it, that is, and it's certainly great for landscape and telephoto photography where you might want to crop in a little bit. In many ways, you could think of this new camera as being like Sony's bigger A7R5, but packed into a far smaller, lighter body. But Sony have made some compromises to keep the size and the price down, including having just an electronic first curtain shutter instead of a fully mechanical shutter, as well as a lower resolution viewfinder, only a single SD card slot instead of two, and a slower flash sync speed of 1/160th of a second instead of 1/250th. Still, almost everything else from the A7R5 is packed in here into a camera that's beautifully small and handy, yet still a powerful upgrade from the original A7C. It now has the far more powerful Bion's XR processing engine, AI processing for subject recognition in autofocus, upgraded dynamic range and image sensitivity, upgraded in-body image stabilization, now up to 7 stops equivalent if you have a stabilized lens as well as a much bigger viewfinder. Nice. It also has better shooting buffer memory and much more natural skin colours, stepping away from Sony's traditional slightly yellow skin tones. It has an improved and easier to use menu system, flicker reduction for shooting in artificial lighting conditions, new creative looks, as well as the auto-framing video options from the ZV-E1 camera, which some people doing certain video work may find useful if they need a fast workflow, although it doesn't work miracles. It now has active image stabilization for vloggers, more on that in a minute, as well as 4K 60p video recording without much of a crop, plus a whole load of new extra features that I'll barely have time to cover in this short video. Oh, and the A7CR comes with an extension grip too, which I wasn't able to test this time around. The camera's price is around $3,000 or £3,200 here in the UK when it hits the market very soon, and I'd like to thank Sony very much for loaning me one of these for a couple of weeks for testing, although as usual this is a totally independent review. The build quality of the camera is, as expected, gorgeous, tough, good looking, not too heavy, nondescript, non-attention grabbing, which is really something you want for street photography or guerrilla filmmaking, but also wedding and portrait photographers should enjoy working with a smaller camera, as they do help to put your human subjects a bit more at ease, who want a giant camera being shoved in their faces after all. Although the viewfinder has been shrunk away into one corner, I was still quite pleased with it. It's comfortable enough to use and offers a large and fairly high resolution image when you look through it. It's now 0.7 times size, is lovely and clear, although it is possible to get even better than this on more expensive cameras. The A7CR is more controllable than the original A7C. It has a front dial as well as a rear one now, and the top dial, while set to exposure compensation, can be customized, and those are really welcome additions. The camera is dead quick and easy to control. I do wish they'd added an autofocus joystick though. They really are so useful, and on a $3,000 camera we really should be getting everything possible. In my tests, the camera's large Z-type battery was nice and powerful, lasting nearly a day's shooting for stills and plenty of video too. It's rated for at least around 700 shots. What'll be annoying to professional photographers is the single SD card slot. I know Sony are trying to save space in this camera, but that's something that will really put off the highest level photographers, and again, the camera's price of around $3,000 kind of restricts it to them in some ways. The lens's maximum burst rate is 8 frames per second with autofocus and auto exposure, which is perfectly fine, although sports photographers will of course prefer a camera a bit bigger and faster than this. The buffer will cover you for 36 raw images or 1000 JPEGs. The screen, again absolutely fine here, bright, decently high resolution, fully articulating with an intuitive touchscreen implementation. A fully articulated screen is a bit slower to use than one that just flips up and down, but it's obviously much more flexible. The camera's autofocus is its star attraction though. Sony have been improving their technology a lot since 2020, and this camera's AI-powered autofocus system will accurately latch onto just about any subject you could think of, with lots of extra options to tweak the way it works for people who want to dig a bit deeper. Honestly, for such a small camera, the focus system is as simple to use as it is almost overpowered, easily on a par with Canon and Nikon's top cameras, and I had great fun using it. Anyway, let's move on and take a look at the camera's image quality. I've never tested this particular 61 megapixel sensor, so I was keen to see what it could do. As you can see, Sony's JPEG engine is on fire here, as it's capturing virtually as much fine detail as the RAW image, although I'd say the sharpening could be a touch less aggressive. What an astonishing amount of detail there, though. Anyway, let's take a look at high ISO noise now. As you can see here, ISO 100 to 800 all looks perfect, and well, so does ISO 1600, and on such a high resolution camera, that is a seriously impressive achievement. At ISO 3200, noise is beginning to emerge, but only subtly. ISO 6400 gets noticeably noisy though, and ISO 12800 and beyond just ends up looking a bit dreadful. Still though, I'm slightly blown away by this performance. Despite almost twice the resolution of its 33 megapixel A7C Mark II brother, this camera's high ISO noise performance is virtually as good, and of course, the incredible resolution being captured is pretty spectacular too. What a fantastic sensor. Oh, and as well as JPEG and RAW, the camera offers lossless compressed RAW and HEIF format support, as well as HDR shooting, so it's pretty future-proof here. Let's see about video quality now. Here is some footage shot in 4K at 25p. I did the same test at 60p, but the video quality was about the same, apart from a small crop. Anyway, at ISO 100, we're seeing tons of fine detail being captured here with no strange artifacts or problems. It's at about ISO 1600 that we're beginning to see a little noise emerging, but not very much. ISO 3200 is starting to get noticeably grainy, and well, it's all downhill from there. You can take things up to ISO 12800 and even beyond, but nah, not usable really, except in an emergency. So, while this is nice sharp video quality, the high ISO noise seems a little higher than on a 33 megapixel A7C Mark II camera, which would make sense as the higher resolution sensor is hardly ideal for 4K low light video making. When it comes to rolling shutter, it's somewhat noticeable in HD. By the way, we're seeing good detail here for 1080p. But unfortunately, the rolling shutter becomes really quite strong in 4K at 25p or 60p. Let's take a look at image stabilization in video mode now. Here's some footage taken at 16mm, firstly without stabilization, and now with normal stabilization, which helps to a small extent, and now with active stabilization, which crops into your video shot quite noticeably, but which I actually thought did a great job of smoothing out your image, although it's obviously still not perfect. So that's a feather in a camera's cap for vloggers. And, well, that's all I've got time for now. The A7CR is a very expensive camera, which kind of limits it to professionals and very enthusiastic amateurs, and professionals might bristle at a few of its missing features, like the lack of a second SD card slot or autofocus joystick. Nevertheless, what an absolutely brilliant camera if it is in your price range. Its unique selling point is of course its small size, although there are a number of other small full-frame cameras on the market, admittedly. That certainly frees up more space in your camera bag, and the camera looks much more inconspicuous, and for all kinds of photographic jobs, a camera with a small profile is genuinely desirable. And the technology inside it genuinely packs a real punch. It's fast and snappy with amazing image quality, good video, tons of the most up-to-date features, and top-tier autofocus. It's pretty impressive that Sony were able to squeeze so much into it, quite frankly, so the camera definitely comes highly recommended. It'll give you loads of fun, especially if you actually need the amount of detail a 61 megapixel sensor can provide, and your lenses are sharp enough, of course. Okay, thanks for watching everyone. Two things. Firstly, if you haven't already, check out the new playlist on my channel, which list my reviews now by camera mount and in other cool ways to help you browse the lens reviews for your camera. And secondly, thanks to my Patreon supporters of course. Patreon supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content and early access to videos, as well as a warm, fuzzy feeling inside them for playing such a big part in keeping this channel trucking along. Ciao for now, everyone.